How's everyone doing today? Oh, man. The feelings, the sensations today are very rich. There is, it's just like well, I was having a conversation with Angelo the other day, and it's pixels and sheets, particles and waves is what it's like. And today it's like these really massive sheets of sensation. Hmm. It's nice to see everyone. Thank you all for attending and being here with me. There's just so many layers of support in terms of the nonprofit that we're in the midst of creating, and just for each other. This is such a can be a really potent resonant space, even though it's not a very long period of time. Quite like a retreat, there have been some really noticeable shifts during satsang as well. And while we're waiting, see if you can just allow yourself to become aware of how you're breathing. Let attention just guide you to the very first thing that you notice. We can ask the question, what is obvious? What do you feel? Doesn't need a label, but notice how attention moves there without needing a thought to accompany. And it can be rapidly shifting and changing as well. Maybe it has an essence of something amorphous or maybe something more solid. See if you can become aware of that space just behind the navel, right there. One commonality that we find is that there seems to be a long term stress response that the identity depends on, right? In that physical space, some kind of clenching or a buzzing. For some, it feels like falling. And if you remember what it was like to be a kid, if you ever had those moments where if you were ever being tossed in the air on the way back down, that's where we feel that sense of falling, that wide, empty space. We are moving into where attention naturally goes. What is obvious? Maybe we are just the universal and infinite attention of consciousness itself. Just attention, motion of energy, emptiness, form. And even though they seem like opposing experiences, the more we allow ourselves to drop closer to the present experience, we start to see that there cannot be a dividing line. The infinite paradox of this. And in that space, you might begin to become aware of the exertion of effort, a sense of something that wants to push against something, something that wants to press forward or away, something that wants to restrict, grasp, or fixate. If you notice that energy, if you notice that sensation, be with that entirely. This is the space we discover there is no difference between sensation and thought. And even if it seems at the moment that your identity has an adversarial nature, this is also where we discover innocence in all things. And sometimes it'll take a notion or a sense of depth of experience, and other times a width. Sometimes it'll appear as a singularity, an infinite contraction. However it appears, whatever expression it seems to take, your attention moves there naturally, automatically, effortlessly. And be with that. Be with that primary experience. From this space, we can see the secondary nature of thought, the mechanisms at play. And really, there's something sweet even about that, because it seems like all it wants to do is to make sure that we're okay, that we're safe. Although misguided, there's a sweetness there. There's a kinship. There's a compassion there. A profound sense of love there. In this really fundamental human experience. And to become more direct, whatever seems to make an appearance is gone as soon as we notice, at first notice. What would it be like to be that immersed in what arises, in what dissolves? What would it be to be moved effortlessly, to be transformed, to lose solidity? What would it be to forget? For all things to come to this, here, just like this. It's remarkably soft and somehow intense. It can often be described as having the feeling of being on the edge of tears and laughter simultaneously. It can often be described as falling in love with the moment, a euphoria, and somehow a sense of loss. Yet our strongest indication of presence is the lack of solidity, the non-single sidedness of this. Something so profoundly dynamic that we cannot put our finger on it, that we cannot really speak to it. There's an essence of time. And so to move forward a little, see if you can recognize that every thought or notion of identity is saying anything but this, anything but this. Even when we feel good, we can encounter that feeling of, I want to feel better, anything but this. And the more familiar sense is when we don't feel very good, anything but this. I want to feel good. And the more still we allow ourselves to be, the more we realize that it is the reference itself, that there is something other than this. This is the nature of forgetting. There is nothing other than this. No future outcome. Awakening is not coming. There's nothing out there. It's right here. You are made of it. You breathe it. Now, in this space of stillness, can you feel that vibration? Can you feel that vanilla warmth of just this? How deeply can you allow this? How fully? So grateful for all of you to be here today. We're going to go over some of the basics. In the very bottom of your Zoom, and I know a lot of you probably already know this, you go to reactions. You can click reactions, and that's where you can raise a hand. If you don't feel comfortable appearing on camera, you can anonymously type your question in the chat and you won't be referred to by name. Or you can just keep your camera off and ask a question that way. No matter which direction intuition guides you, it will be just fine. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for ghost hunting with me today, so to speak. All right, let's go. Let's go to Sam.
Hello, Josh. Nice to meet you, and nice to meet everyone. I'm from Spain, by the way. I don't know if you get in contact with people from Spain, but you get the message comes over here too. So my question has to do with something that I hear you guys talk about a lot, which is like at some point the perception. I don't know if perception is the word, but it seems like everything it's aware of itself, like every sensation you guys say, right? Like it's in the visual field, for example, is because I'm saying this because the visual field for me, it's like one of the biggest clues that it's deepening ever since I had the awakening, like it's been deepening through the visual field a lot, and how it feels like merges with the senses and like, so at some point, if there is a lot of presence in that moment, it's like everything gets electrified in a way or energized, like it changes a little bit the texture of what I'm seeing, and I feel something like very like energetic in the chest, in the belly a lot. And I don't know if that has something to do with what your guys are saying, and I should be leaning towards that feeling more and see what's there, or I don't know. I don't know if that's a question even, but like hopefully it helps.
No, it's a great question. It seems like we tend to have some kind of configuration. Yeah. So when there was a point in this character's life where there was teaching and working with kids, and we learned about learning modalities, visual, audio, kinesthetic, things along these lines. And it seems like whatever we are more effortlessly kind of configured for, and it's probably still associated somewhat with identity, but there tends to be a place where identity lets go of the grasping a little bit, can be the visual field. That's how it seemed to show up here. But a lot of people in the audio field too. That is a perfect place for attention to kind of fall naturally into presence. And it's a great space to now discover or experiment with boundaries. Is it just visual? And when you were talking about feeling it kinesthetically as well, that's a pretty powerful overlapping. ultimately, the experience can be described as this. In the midst of presence, there's no longer reference. And if there's no reference, then who are you? Where are you? Is there a you? Is there even anyone watching? Or is it just experiencing? And that can become so profound that it can flip or invert itself into seemingly a sense of nothingness or emptiness, which is really hard to describe, but it can become like this intensity of vastness. And so to allow yourself to go with where attention naturally is falling is excellent, as long as you are aware of how the identity and thoughts may want to create a fixation or a stance or a set of rules that it has to be a certain way. That's all.
Yeah. So the challenge is, I feel like it has to do with that. Like it's this I am sense you guys talk about as well, or it's like very clear in a sense. Like I don't even feel like I'm in the body necessarily. It's more like when I see space, it's like I cover every space in a way, and the more space I have in front of me in a way, it's like I cover that space, but it's still that sense of it's me feeling that, you know. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
So it's tricky. There isn't a very methodical pointing when it comes to it's almost the effect of walking to the edge of a cliff and asking ourselves, well, how do I jump? There's no strategy really there. We just get to the space where jumping jumps. The best pointing here, though, is these experiences, this level of presence, meditation, inquiry, whatever seems to give us access to something that we can perceive as deeper presence, that is like cultivating a soil, and maybe something grows. But this is where a lot of the pointers, especially in Zen, will say awakening happens by accident because there's no one to awaken. There's no one to do anything to awaken. So the best you can do is perpetually stay in the space of presence, which usually will include being aware of thoughts as they arise and noticing that they're part of this landscape of sensation as well. And really, this space of sensation, this area from the throat down to behind the navel, this has probably been said before here, although this is where the sensations seem to take a personal tone for us, these emotions, so to speak. And that is where the identity prefers to linger. So just however it shows, follow the breadcrumbs and never ever allow any bypassing. Leave no stone left unturned. Explore it all as profoundly and deeply as possible. And then what we can do is step into the energetics of curiosity, the energetics of inquiry. Eventually, inquiry does reach a threshold because we're still entertaining some level of thought. But there's an energetic quality to that curiosity that if we're really still and we're really, really silent, we can feel the attention moving somewhere and we become that motion. We become the movement itself. And so it's no longer us experiencing sensation. We become the sensation. We can't find our dividing line or our boundaries any longer.
yeah, with attention, I mean, I don't want to talk too much because like there's people with hands raised. So yeah, I would just thank you, and after these people, I'll ask again if I can. So yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Very
Man.
helpful.
Nice to see you.
You too.
All right, Nico.
Hello.
Hi.
So I kind of energetically feel like I'm giving birth and dying at the same time. And now that I sense, I do know what's real and what's not real. And it cannot be undone, because as long as I saw it, it's like there is no way, can be undone what I see, And my question is, so there is a guidance to raise vibration in here, but I don't know if I'm delusional, or because like I don't exist. So like, why do I do that? Why do I do that? you know, it's so funny. Everything is so funny now.
Mm. Part of this is the examination. If it feels maybe like discomfort or pain, eventually we enter into the curiosity of what is discomfort, what is pain, and what is high vibration versus low vibration, what is existing versus non-existing, these kinds of questions. And ultimately what that does is it's an opportunity for opening, for maybe a purer sense of intimacy. This experience of difficulty and pain that we can have in the midst of, we could just call it shadow work, doesn't actually exist. But it really seems to be the mind or the identity's exertion to orient to that which cannot be oriented to. That's the sense of fear that some people have. It can be sorrow. It could just be physical, palpable, some types of pain that way as well. But it's this exertion of something attempting to grasp air, nothingness. And it gets even a little bit more profound than that. Emptiness isn't quite what the mind wants to construct it into. It's not like when you open your Amazon box and you look inside and there's nothing inside. It's not that. It's literally the infinite potential that preceded the Big Bang.
Yeah, it feels like the light contracted itself into black hole and sucks everything in. Then when it expands.
When it begins to get this fundamental, Nico, now you're finding a dividing line. It's almost a yes and a no, or I like it, I don't like it. It's just reference itself. It's saying that this is somehow opposing something else. It is the essence of separation. So what would it be to become the black hole so completely that you weren't able to even decipher the difference between the light and the dark? That's what this disillusion and this sense of annihilation or obliteration can be. And that particular journey, there's not much to point to. You already know what you know, what you know, what you know, what you know, what you know. And there's something crying out for attention constantly. Just be that. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing broken. It's like in the midst of a nightmare, if somebody were sleeping on the couch here and they're kicking and punching and screaming the air, and I come over and I shake their shoulder real quick. Hey, you're okay. You're okay. And when they look, they're still kicking and punching as they open their eyes, but then they look around and they go, oh, I guess I am okay. That's, it's kind of a silly metaphor, but yeah, that's really what it's like. But sometimes we got to kick and punch. So if there's kicking and punching, we are completely kicking and punching. If there's
it feels like I'm done with that, mostly. So there's still something, but now there is like there is love in my heart instead of the darker stuff, because it is the darker stuff.
I mean,
anyway,
what's the difference?
There is no difference.
This is the juiciest part of all of this. What's the difference? If there feels like there's a difference, keep swimming. But another thing is, to be really clear, Nico, we're never done. What can be, what ends? So,
well, this is exciting now, you know?
Yeah. I mean, what's the difference between anxiety and terror and excitement and terror?
It's the same thing.
Seems to be. Maybe. Who knows?
And I have this like the hologram. It's kind of like the non-real and the real. It's like pulling and pushing. Like, you know what I'm saying?
That's another one. Explore that boundary between what's real, what's unreal. How do you know?
I don't know how I know. It's just when I saw that that's not it.
How do you know that's
not? I just do. There is a knowing that it's beyond. There is a knowing of beyond knowing.
The one thing I will definitely point to for everyone is pay extra special attention to that which we want to reject. At any level, this is a fractal experience. Anything that we want to reject is where there will be something that we're not entertaining, we're not exploring. What is not this? What is not awakening? Can you take a step outside of this universe?
Is there a universe?
Yeah. Yes. And then we start to engage with this inquiry, and this part can be challenging, but I want to point to this for everyone. We can engage in this sense of inquiry without needing the thought to preclude the experience. It's really like feeling wow all the time. Just that is wide open innocence. Wow, 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 wow. I had a dream. Must have been a few months ago. I was hanging out with Adyashanti in some strange cityscape, someplace I didn't know. And I look over at him and I say, if you could give me one pointer to say to other people, what would it be? And he looked at me and he went, shh.
Okay, I'm going to do that.
Don't need to narrate the experience. Don't need to figure this out. I mean, you can. Sometimes it's fun to, run into a wall a few times. There's no wrong direction. I promise you that. We're all headed the same way. Come what may. Feather in the wind. Nice to see you.
You too.
Who else would like to interact today? Anybody have questions? You can, like, as I mentioned before, I know some people have just joined. You can also type questions into the chat if you do not want to be on camera. All right. Let's see. Liz.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I love what you were saying about the dream. Dreams are so interesting because they're I find they're sort of parallel to, I mean, what we think of as being awake now. I used to put them in separate categories, but whenever I would wake up in the morning, I always had this thing where I had to remember my dreams. And I knew there was something significant about that at some point, and I actually stopped doing it. And that has kind of helped me to translate into awakening, in that it's when I'm trying to locate myself in it, as things are happening, that I feel like I halt it, or in the past. But I've been able to start letting go of that, to where I don't need to locate in it. Like you were talking about, just being with the sensations, and then the sense of what's here just kind of merges into what's seen. And that used to be terrifying. And it felt like I had to, just to find myself there. It was like putting my foot down. It was like kind of like floating in water, where you feel like you're drowning, and you have to put your foot down and stand up because you don't think you can swim. But then you realize that it's actually only 2 feet deep, and you didn't need to do that. So it's okay. So just a lot of things, I'm just kind of riffing, but so many things that you've talked about just resonating here. And another thing was, in the beginning, in the meditation that you did, the way you described, you said something about, it's where laughter and tears merge. And for me, I've had this experience that when the bliss comes, which it does rather spontaneously and unpredictably, that it feels like this immense gratitude, and then the tears come, and it's just, there's a lot of crying. There's a lot of crying that happens. And at first I was resisting that, or thinking there was something wrong, and trying to understand it too. But I've realized it's not necessary, whatever it is, it's just the natural unfolding. And in a way, it sort of feels like grieving for the one who suffered for so long. This like, yeah, if I could put words to it. So anyway, I trust it's just going to unfold as it's meant to. And there's a lot less resistance and trying to orient to, what's happening, or to predict, like you said, we can't, there's no map for this, and it's so different for everyone. But it's so awesome to be able to be in a group like this, and to feel the energetic resonance, and to hear snippets from different people about, what the experience is there. I really appreciate, there's a lot of gratitude here for that. So thank you for providing this space, and for all your pointings. They're just so awesome.
Something to say about that sense of feeling like we're drowning. That visceral sense of losing orientation can be really intense. And we have this platform of comfort or experience that's definitely going to be mind and thought associated. And it's okay to play the hokey pokey. This is almost an Angelo pointing, where he said soon after he had awoken, he saw a bumper sticker that asked, "What if the hokey pokey really is what it's all about?" And in a way, that's kind of the approach to see how deeply we can allow ourselves to go. It's kind of like the Polynesian peoples when they would discover a chain of islands. What they would do is they would follow the migration pattern of the birds over the ocean as far as they could until the last bird had passed. And then they would mark where they were based on the stars, and then they would go home. And then the next year, they would start at that space for the next migration, and then they would follow the birds more and more and more and more. And there's eventually a point where they were so far away from home, they couldn't go back. They were in the great unknown. And what the vigilance is, what the immersion is, what the engagement is to allow ourselves to go further and further and further every time we encounter that space, that sensation. And without needing to put our foot down, without needing to have some sense of comfort or solidity there, we eventually find ourselves in the great unknown. And there we find no one. We don't find ourself at all, it seems. And so as we go, wherever these limitations seem to arise, wherever these difficulties or these resistances seem to arise, that's your treasure map. That's where X is marking the spot. And I'm not saying you need to impose or force it. It arises on its own. But when it does, the only time to approach any of these things is in real time, in the moment. How fully can I allow myself to fall? Maybe I find myself weightless. It's strange paradox that as we go, as we allow ourselves to feel in this way, to be overtaken, so to speak, lose orientation, the identity is somehow watching that experience and realizing that there's nothing to protect. We're fine. And when there's nothing left to protect, it lets itself go. Letting go happens on its own with full engagement. We don't let go. By definition, we cannot let go. If there is a me here, there is a grasping. And there's a fixation and something held on to. The simplicity is there, but that doesn't make it easy, of course. You wouldn't have it any other way. This is custom for each of you, each of us, till there is no each of us. Thanks, Liz. All right, let's go. Go ahead, Patty.
Hello.
Hi.
Well, I've been exploring, fascinated by this idea of emptiness. And you just kind of riffed a little bit, pointed in that direction just now. I was kind of hoping you would. And the idea that the essence of all things is exactly the same as everything. When I looked at a rock and I'm looking at a person, that the essence is identical. And I don't know what to do with this. It's just fascinating. How do I live in a world where the essence of everything is identical? Is that weird? Is that normal?
How could those things be defined at all?
Exactly. The essence is nothing. Not nothing. Undescribable.
Yeah, there's that piece, and somehow we can feel infinite potential within emptiness. which is so strange. That infinite potential is everything, but it's also nothing, empty. It's like straddling the present moment. I mean, this is viscerally how it feels all the time. There has never been, time does not move. There is no such thing at all. We are at the moment of creation and the death of this universe. It's like we are straddling this big bang. It's like one leg is in this vast emptiness that has the infinite potential of everythingness in it. And the other leg is in the midst of this explosion. That is very much what it's like to be in the midst of what we could just call presence. But even then, it's tricky to create presence as an object becomes another thought pursuit. Most important thing, Patty, is there's nothing to do with anything. There's no implication of to do at all. That is the effort of the mind. Can you feel into that space? Here's the best part. Every thought is telling on itself. It's giving itself away. If we become still enough, we can see that it's pointing to something that is very obvious. When there's a sense of I got to do something about this, or what should I do about this, there's probably a sense of something else that you can feel.
Interesting.
And all that really is, even that sensation may be just the exertion of something attempting to find orientation in a space that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, that sounds right. Orientation. It was beautiful, scary, unknown, effortless, and the weirdest thing.
I love it.
Yeah. Me too.
Here's an example of following the breadcrumbs. This might be useful for other people here too. In the midst of that, then the thought comes up, well, what do I do with this? I got to figure something out. And then we realize, okay, it's almost as if attention seems to be pulled into a tighter spot, like bottled up. And then we notice a sensation there. And as we go to that sensation, maybe the next thing that is immediately appearing is frustration or fear. Boom, fear, whatever this experience of fear is. That's the breadcrumb. That's what we're with. Each thing instantaneously, just like that, as fully as possible. Hokey pokey. Put your arm in, take it out. Put it back in. Eventually, you will be absolutely immersed in the experience and it becomes indecipherable. There is no separation. It's just this. This is the death of, or the end of suffering. Suffering relies absolutely on reference, that there's something else. There's a better feeling. There's something that we could call happiness, and this isn't it. How the hell do we know? It's all imposed. And this little micro universe, we could just call it that for now. It's fractals, as is above, so is below. What you were talking about, the essence of everything is in everything. This is wherever we go, there we are. On just a really relative human level, it's always something to engage with. This shows us everything because we cannot pinpoint this experience here.
Yeah.
Let that be the space of transition. Going there so completely begins to reveal is just everything's illuminated. And not that we're witnessing it or we're learning or we're mastering anything. It's quite the opposite. We return to such a state of innocence, there's no knowledge left, nothing to refer to. And the only thing I can describe that as is complete and utter well-being. It's just perfectly okay. It's just absolute perfection, no matter what seems to be the case. And that space right there is the cosmic joke. What?
Awesome.
Follow those breadcrumbs. Let it be immediate. we could go back to that inquiry. Just what is obvious here? Okay, the thought seems obvious. Great. It's okay if the thought seems obvious first. Another pointing, just really quick for everyone too. Gangaji says something that is so juicy. She said, even if we're experiencing the pettiness of what it is to be engaged with identity, we have to be honest. One thing at a time, as honest as possible. I'm in this path because I want to wake up and I want to tell all my family and friends. I want to supersede whatever it is. Engage that first. It has to be engaged. There's no point in bypassing it. And it's going to be pointing to something present anyway. These are the breadcrumbs. Every micro experience. Every breath is a breadcrumb. Every beat of the heart is a breadcrumb. Every breeze outside. The flicker of light. And then that's usually where we start to encounter the doubt machine. But you're going to lose everything. You're not going to be able to function. You're going to wear a diaper. Thanks for your help. And right back to that doesn't feel comfortable. That's all it is.
That's great.
You told on yourself again. It's not the content as much as the fact that if it's chirping, you know there's something present that's obvious. Anyway, I have a whole pack of depends just in case. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
All right. Let's see. Debbie.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I don't even know what I've got to say, but when you were saying about follow the breadcrumbs, I thought about talking to you, and even right at the beginning, there was just a lot of fear. So then I thought, well, I need to talk to you then, don't I?
Yeah.
So it was just that, really.
There seems to be a real commonality for everyone who's on the path, and it's a bit of a middle finger, a sense of rebellion. That sense of rebellion that's what you're engaging with now. Eventually, what that does is it turns into rebelling against the narrative itself, because it becomes almost like an authority figure. So that sense of fear and the willingness to challenge that's engagement. And it's not challenge it for any reason or outcome, maybe, or at least pay attention if you're engaging for some kind of result. But it's to challenge it because it seems to be telling us no. And the no itself that's where all the magic is. We automatically accept everything that we like. It's an automatic yes. But the things that are being pushed against the no's, that will reveal quite a bit. So even on an external level, to engage in the way where you are afraid of something and you just say, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. That's just engagement with courage. But there's also curiosity there. Probably intuition too. Fear is such an interesting experience. We can't know what it is. I mean, it is literally this, it kind of has its own meta experience. It's like afraid of being afraid of being afraid of being afraid of being afraid. But what is it? What is it? Even the sensations can be difficult to pinpoint of what seems to come along with fear. The great thing about fear, especially when Angelo points to the fear barrier, is fear is an indication that the mind is working overtime to orient to something that it just can't figure out. It's a good space to be. Because eventually it just goes, I just,
Yeah, there seems to be so much oscillation from, or feeling that there's this toing and froing that you perhaps referenced a bit, and I don't even know what it is that seems to keep me coming back. Whatever it is, the self-in mechanism just seems to cling on or pop up. And when you said about letting go, it's felt several times that something has just let go.
Mm-hmm.
And yet really late and lots at night, lots of this happens at night, and then in the morning it seems that self is there's definitely an orientation here still. And it's just that seems to have gone on for such a long time. It's just I feel like there's something that I'm not seeing that's fixating somewhere. I don't know. So when I had that fear of talking to you, I thought, well, let's do that.
So maybe you can tap into the sense of disassociation. We can feel it. We can actually feel it. It can be subtle at first, but what tends to happen is there's some kind of imaginary boundary or line. Like in this circumstance, I could be completely wide open, and then something comes along and we don't quite see it until after the fact that we moved into complete identification or thought space. From here, it's get to that same space, that space that you know of openness, of presence. Go deep, go deep, go deep. And then as the dynamic aspects of life move, see if you can see in real time as it arises. Stay in that space. You must stay 100% in a space of feeling. Have awareness here perpetually. That is the best way to describe stillness, is complete awareness of the sensational space and perceiving thoughts. When we are able to perceive thoughts from a sensational space, we are actually seeing the secondary mechanism in action. They don't seem to arise in the moment, at least not the content. The sensation of a thought seems to be present, but then there's like this bouncing back and forth that becomes content, this Hall of Mirrors experience. So when you wake up in the morning, if it seems different, this could be useful for you. The very first thing that you experience sensationally in the morning is the only thing, is everything. Notice the first thing you notice is a thought, bounce right back here and just buried before you even get out of bed, as soon as the eyes open. Pay attention to certain mechanisms of distraction. They're all tools for disassociation. Do you grab your phone right away? Do you turn on, whatever people do. Do you engage in thought about what you're going to do for the day? It's all forms of disassociation. When you wake up in the morning, as the mind is beginning to kind of come online, it's a great opportunity to set the tone. I am just right in the midst of this. And from there, being buried in that, as your dynamic aspects of day goes on, you can see where certain mechanisms begin to arise. It's like the Wizard of Oz. You're pulling back the curtain and going, I see it. You see it all. And even if it plays out, that's okay to see these patterns or these habits. It's okay. As long as you're watching completely vigilantly, completely engaged, then maybe it just dies. It sloughs off. Really all that identity is at its core is just a pattern of thought, a construct. It's a habit. So to see these habits in real time, suddenly things become a little bit more clear because you're still buried in presence. Maybe give that a shot.
Yeah.
But it also,
Thank you.
good engaging with something that's saying no. That's a excellent, just naturally excellent practice. Definitely challenge every no. Find out why it's a no. What does no mean? What's it attempting to refer to? You might get a sense of history there. Oh, remember when you were 12 and those boys were really mean to you? That's what it is. Oh, what? But that's not even here. Thought to sensation. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Sam.
What was that I want to ask? Okay, so I am breaking with my girlfriend. I would say like, we already broke up like this last week, and it's the first time that well, it's been after 4 years or something like that, and it's the first time that there is not much thought going on as it used to, and basically I'm resonating so much with what you were saying. Like it's basically like the space here in the body and in the chest and the belly. It's very, very intense these days, and very intense. And there is this sort of disorientation in the sense like, yeah, thoughts come and they go, and I just don't believe them in a way that I used to believe them before. So I can sense the conditioning of the thoughts that's telling me, it's like when a thought arises telling me, no, you should have not followed your intuition and you should have, what's the tense in English? What you should still be with your girlfriend, right? Instead of what you did, you just followed your intuition because whatever, right? And then the moment the thought arises, it is felt as the conditioning arising and telling me what I should do and pointing at what I should do based on maybe the past or whatever. And those moments, it is clear that it's not me thinking. It's very clear it's just appearing. But my question is, should I engage that content, or just what I'm doing right now is just full into the body all the time and just that's it? So I don't know what's better, or I don't know.
Good question. The content is really compelling, but don't trust any thought ever.
Yeah.
No matter how compelling. It wants you. This is basically the game it's playing. It's not even the content itself. What the content is your clickbait. Okay, something that's really going to get a reaction here. And what it's essentially doing if we zoom out a little bit, it's saying, okay, for me, I need you to have 2 more thoughts. And then you have those 2 more thoughts. And then it says, okay, for now those thoughts, you need to have 2 more for those thoughts. And then you have 4 thoughts. And for each of these thoughts, now you need to have 2 more of those. And then you have 8, and it continues until you're in thousands of thoughts. And all of that was designed to do was to protect you from the potentially dangerous space of feeling something. Because it cannot feel every potential sensation is dangerous. And this is a fixation that was created in childhood, because when we feel, and as children, and my favorite thing, by the way, is when people say, I was a sensitive child. And I'm like, yeah, who wasn't? We're all so raw as children. What we feel is like, it's like the weight of this universe is just blasting into our tiny little helpless bodies. We feel a lot as kids, a lot. And then it starts to become personal for us, because it feels like it's only happening here. It doesn't seem like anybody else is feeling anything. And then this mechanism of cause and effect, the pattern seeker comes out and goes, look for a reason, look for a reason, look for a cause and effect and an origin. And then something happens out here. Maybe we get in trouble. Maybe our parents get a divorce. We can't make sense of it with our mind, but we still feel this massive sensation seemingly arise from here that seems to only be contained. And then the mind goes, boom, there's the cause of all of this. It's your fault. You're broken. You're not worthy of love. Something's wrong with you. And we take it so personally that and really what that experience is the rift between innocence and shame. Innocence and shame, they're the same. Innocence is shame. But the feeling of shame is the exertion and the effort that the identity does to cover innocence up, to hide it. That's the feeling. Got to hide it. Can't show your true nature. Can't hide it. You're going to be obliterated. You're going to be destroyed. And see, it's telling on itself. When it says, this is going to kill you, it's not going to kill me. There's no me. It's going to kill you. Methinks it doth protest too much. It's telling on itself. But all of these things, these thoughts, are intended to distract you from discovering that there is actually no such thing as shame or innocence. It's all this one experience. There's actually no rift there. It's the illusion that there's this dark side, this shadow, this shame, and this light side, this beautiful, free, happy thing, and somehow they're separated. to go into that space where we tend to hold this long-term stress response. And I don't know why it's so commonly held right behind the navel. And I mean, it can be a band, but once we start to come in contact with that, there's like a, oh shit moment where we go, oh, it's always been here. I've predicated my entire existence to compensate for this sensation. And then we start laughing and crying because we're like, what the hell? It makes no sense. And then we keep going and we keep going and we look for the solid core, find the solid core, find the solid core. And then we just drop through the floor. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
There's nothing to hide. There's nothing even putting effort. But until we know it, we just approach things as it seems palpably true. This is the nature of curiosity. If it seems real, engage it as it is. If there's pettiness that arises, engage it as it is. Go to the sensation.
Fully on the body, right? Fully on sensation. It's like, yeah. Like at this point, it's like it makes no sense to like trying to decipher anything through thought, because it's just another thought that comes after that, right? So it's just full on here or whatever it feels, right? Like sometimes it doesn't feel like even in the body or whatever. Like just very, very intense. And I guess it's disorienting in the sense that like this is the first time that in my life that I made a decision based on fully what felt like it had to happen. Like, and there's no thought backing it up or convincing itself like this is for this reason, and that's what feels weird because it's the unknown, I guess. That like I don't know what's going to happen because never did that before in that sense, I guess. And but yeah, very helpful what you said, because yeah, like, at this point, like, it's like, why pay attention to content? Like it's just full, just in the body. Just let it do what it does, right? Like whatever it does is just be with it.
The content isn't even really there, but it's really good at baiting us. Just know that it's all about bait. And what it really needs is you to have a reaction, which is to pull away from this, anything but this, anything but this, anything but this. And it can become more and more desperate the closer we get. In fact, pay attention to when the thoughts get really desperate. You know you're right on the cusp of touching something. Okay. Do anything. Do something. Do something. Hurry. Do something. You're going to die. Hurry. Anything but this. Do something. Here. How about this? Remember this when you were 5? Remember what happened? Remember how your dad yelled at you? Remember when your grandpa died? Brrr, just to get you to because this is potentially dangerous. It just doesn't know. And it also comes from innocence. And here's the thing. When people speak of grieving, I think Liz might have even brought something up about it. There's some of that shows up too. We grieve for Sisyphus. We grieve for the thing that's pushing the boulder up the hill every day. Because we see that it was doing the best it could, but it didn't need to happen at all. But that's part of this integration as well. It's like we take that boulder, we put it to the other side, and we go, hey, you can rest. And then we see this broken, battered, bloody, dirty, naked little boy right there, or little girl. Us. It is also an aspect of us, truest nature. And we say, you can rest. And when that little body crumbles to the ground and cries itself and just melts through all this sadness and release, there seems to be an integration that occurs. The rift, this imaginary perceptual rift of shadow and innocence just goes. And in that space, there's no one there. There's no more echo. And this is the journey. This is the path home, my friends. It's worth it. If the tears come, man, I don't think anyone in this meeting can say that crying doesn't feel so damn good. It feels so good. It is such a pleasurable experience. Find the paradox in all sensation. That's a little forceful. Let the paradox reveal itself by engaging with things as fully as possible. And you will find that there is no such thing as pain or pleasure. It's just this. So it's a good question though, because I know how compelling that content can be, man. Whew. And it shows up a lot for a lot of people. And then there's this like, well, I got to entertain this.
Yeah. Sometimes I just start crying, and it resonated a lot. Like sometimes I just start crying, and but it feels so different than before. It's just I try to fully engage with that, and it doesn't hurt. It's just like it's a relief. Actually, it's like almost at some point it's like thank God, like like fully feeling the crying, and for apparent no reason. Sometimes like. I don't know, but just thank you so much.
We don't need a reason for anything. Maybe the eyes just needed to clean themselves. You don't even need to tell the story that something is being released, because where's it going to go? Being released to where?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Josh.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful.
Of course. All right. It looks like Paul.
G'day, Josh. Hi, everyone. Boy, a very powerful gathering. I'm feeling it right here at the moment. So not anticipated. I wasn't very keen to speak right now. But I think it resonates because there's a lot of processing here, in terms of not coming to satsang with the answers or a history, but just turning up and just feeling where people are at and just being present to the conversation. So it's, wow, there's a lot moving through right now. But I really connected with your migrating birds, the bird story, and the people of Polynesia following the birds. So there's a question here. I don't know how useful it is. There's a question about intention, and I feel like this question's a bit of a cover, but I'll fire it out and see what happens. So they jump in their boats and they follow the birds, and they do that year by year. So I tend to do things with intention, and I'm just the question around, does intention have any purpose ultimately as you follow the birds? Do you just have to forget where they're going? Or do you actually need to know where you're headed?
That's a good question. What would you say to that?
Just a bolt of fear just comes to mind, because I have no idea where it's going.
Yeah. And maybe that was their experience too. Here's a childish koan for you. Why did the bear go over the mountain?
Follow the birds.
To see what he could see.
See what he could see. Cool.
I understand that really compelling. We could call it a stone or an anchor with purpose. Purpose, man, it can be so juicy for us. Like we need some kind of guiding principle or guiding anchor. Ultimately, though, doesn't exist. You're just following the birds to see. Start with that. Mm-hmm. If we really step into innocence, we find that we play just to play. As little children, especially before language is really ensconced, you watch them and they're sharing their half-eaten snacks, they're hugging each other, they're running around, they're grabbing objects. It's just all improv. It's all innocence. There's no reason behind it. There's no goal. And that piece of us never goes anywhere. That seems to be the most crucial piece of all of this for us. Just to do it, just to experience it, just to play.
Tricky, yeah. I've always taken this to be quite serious, the meditation and all the reading and everything. But so all of this can be done in the same spirit, as in, I don't have to be so earnest, perhaps, about this inquiry.
Absolutely. The serious nature kind of breaks apart over time for most. Although when you're speaking of intention, there is something that you can tap into or feel that is, there's already intention in place, that it doesn't need to spawn from us or within our minds or within our soul or whatever the experience might be, it seems to already be here. You can feel the intention, and it might not have a reason, but it has the energy of momentum. It's curiosity itself, it seems. But sometimes it might take a serious tone. We're also best equipped to just handle things as they appear. So if it takes a serious tone, I know you shared some things about visiting home. If it takes that kind of tone, we must engage it in that tone. Pay attention to what wants to alter the experience or have experience these micro manipulations of this environment, and see what it's like to experience this without that. What if I don't need to suit my environment for this identity? So it can be light. It can be heavy. Let it be what it is. So if something is taking a serious tone as a consistent experience, maybe that's being imposed to some degree. Like it has to be. And you can't be blamed for that. I mean, there's a lot of traditions that really lean that direction too. And I know you've kind of explored in that way. It makes sense. So now, clean slate, tabula rasa, every instant, whoosh, brand new.
Thank you. That feels really nice.
Yeah. Nice to see you, man.
You too. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Paul. All right, we got Julian.
Hello. When you were speaking earlier, I felt some kind of wave of tiredness come up, and then some wave of tension, and I'm just wondering how right now I can kind of let go of all of that, and if there's more to see with less of me, is that something that I can kind of let go into right now?
When tiredness or exhaustion arises, it can sometimes be a sign of a pull toward disassociation. Another one that I see quite often is even in the middle of sessions, sometimes people will need to get up and go to the bathroom. That's a good one. Got to get out of here. Got to get out of here. The best way to describe letting go, my friend, is absolute immersion in whatever's showing up. So if it's tiredness, to be all the way into tiredness. What does tiredness usually tell us? I got to do something about this. What if you don't get to do anything about it? What if you have to put that hot iron directly in your mouth and now you don't get to swallow or spit it out? That's where the letting go arises. It might eventually reveal itself as something more like restlessness, frustration. I mean, it could be a variety of things that show up, but that's where the letting go is. We don't let go. We just stay engaged. It lets itself go. Be willing to walk through the fire. Adyashanti speaks to, he talks about 3 spaces of integration. He says, we release contractions here, then the heart seems to open, and then we seem to find this space right in the gut. This feeling of tiredness seems to be really commonly a heart opening experience. Like a chest just. And that can feel quite a bit like letting go. When the heart opens, as it does, can be a lot of tears, but it's also suddenly inundated with love, just a sense of deep compassion. And to come into contact with that, that's your goddamn birthright.
Hmm.
I mean, you're here, seemingly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. This is the path. So unique, yet so much the same. Oh, man. I am so grateful for everyone coming and visiting today. The questions were really good. The sharings were really good. What a variety. Thank you so much for just being just wide open, coming as you are. This kind of space can have some really subtle repercussions that kind of spread throughout the day. Please do yourselves a huge favor as we go and as we move. Whatever you're coming in contact with here and now, let that be what guides the rest of the energy of your experience today, and pay attention to where boundaries or lines seem to arise. This is your opportunity, the here and now. You can stay. And, maybe it'll be quite an adventure. All right, everyone. Really, really appreciate you so very much. And thank you. And I will see you soon. Oh, want to point out, so we have, I'll reveal who's in the next Ouroboros meeting, which is coming up on February 24th. But we have some pretty awesome people, some people you'll probably be excited to hang out with. So appreciate all your support with that too. Thanks, Julian. Thanks, everyone. So nice to see you. Bye.